Hi, everyone. Wow, that was an impressive and humbling introduction. So as is customary with these talks, it's customary to share a bit about yourself so you know who this guy is that's talking here. Well, as you can see, as a kid, I wanted to become an astronaut, to learn. I desired to learn. I wanted to discover new things and to create. And in that sense, to go where no one had gone before. And today, I get to do just that. I get to share some of the learnings that we've had over the past couple of years. And today, I get to share that with you guys. So as for the next 30, 35 minutes, I'll quickly go through what VR is, why it is useful, and what language that we're speaking, not in a technical sense, but in a narrative sense. And then, of course, we have a bit of time to take a glimpse into the future, and then I would love to engage in a little chat and do some Q&A. So save your questions till the end, and I'll tackle them if I can. The question that we always get is, what is this VR thing that everyone is on about? It's easier to answer by what it is not. Because people generally go like, oh, I know VR. That's like the 3D glasses that you have when you go to the cinema, right? Because it pops out of the screen. Well, not really. I mean, it's cool, but it's not VR. Or people go like, oh, I know. That's the thing that Google came up with. The Google Glass thing, it came and it went. Augmented reality. Slightly different. It's a layer of information that's projected on the real world. So you could be in Japan, where you cannot, and not everyone can read kanji, and you can suddenly read all the signs. Pretty useful, but it didn't really go anywhere at the time. Then there's Microsoft. They do HoloLens. Again, cool, augmented reality. You get lots of information on the workplace, in your vision. Or Magic Leap, the company that has gotten billions in funding and doesn't release a product. So then we have 360 video. Everyone just messes up the terms, which is fun, but it's not VR. And, well, as you can see, this guy is having a great time exploring 360 video. And then we've got the roller coasters. I mean, this makes for a fun viral video, but that guy is not having a good time. So he's not going to come back to VR at any point. So then we also hear about XR. So XR is like the umbrella moniker for VR, but VR, again, is not AR, and AR is not MR. We have no idea what we're talking about. No one actually does. And it doesn't really matter, since VR is not really VR. It's the culmination of a lot of technologies. It's augmented reality, it's AI, there's machine learning, there's IoT, there's all these technologies. And I mean, I could call it immersive technology today, but we're going to call it something else in 2 years from now. What matters is what this all represents, what it can do for you, how it can make your life easier, what problem it can solve, how it can make you happier as a person. And that's kind of what we discovered. When we put people in headsets and show them content, the corners of their mouth go up, they get this sensation of awe, and they look around, and they get to be genuinely happy. And that is what we set out to do as a company. My company is called WeMakeVR, and we bring people moments of joy, because you want to reach that core emotion. Once you reach that, that's where you start to communicate. So, cool, we can convey emotions, but why does this make sense? Why do we want this? Why does it have a reason to exist? Well, in essence, VR is technology that enables you to experience a different world, another moment in time, and it's not new. NASA was doing this in the 60s to train astronauts, and they had very high-tech equipment, as you can see, but of course, technology has evolved since then. I mean, everyone kind of associates VR with gaming. There's this company called Oculus that you might have heard about. This is yes, this is no. I see a couple of yeses. Oculus, they were bought by Facebook for $2 billion, and they promised to fulfill the promise of VR gaming. But we went a lot further than that. And why is this relevant to us as people? Why do we want to capture moments in time, to go back in time, to travel the world in a virtual space? That brings us to what we do and what we are as humans. As humans, we have a drive to share stories. We're social beings, social creatures. If you experience something that makes you really happy or really sad, you share that with your friends, your family, your loved ones. And I mean, that's not new. We've been doing that since the dawn of time through cave paintings. And that, of course, evolved to oral tradition, storytelling, writing, book printing, and that eventually scaled up to TV. Little black and white boxes with mono speakers that would tell you a story. Over time, these screens, these small black and white screens became bigger. So now we have IMAX screens, and we keep adding speakers. There's 64 channels in the Dolby Atmos theater. So why do we keep making these screens bigger? And why do we keep adding more speakers to it? As storytellers, if you want to convey a story, an emotion, you want to immerse the person that you're talking to in your story. You want to take them along. So increasing the size and making that increases immersion. It makes your audience more part of the story. It makes us more effective in the way we share what we want to share. Which brings me to this quote. I mean, why do we strive for more immersion? That answer can actually be found in ancient wisdom. Like talking, I mean, I can talk, and most of the stuff I say, you're going to forget in less than 35 minutes. So you can be in a classroom and be focused and teach, or listen to a teacher, and you might recall some of that info. But once you involve someone, once you let someone experience something, that is where you create new synaptic connections. That's where you create new memories. And we've known that for 1,000 years. And now, with VR, we have the first opportunity to roll out this technology, this way to help people learn on a massive scale, which gets me excited. So there's a couple of misconceptions, and I'm going to put those straight. VR is not film. Even though you use cameras, it's not film. It's not 360 video. It's not a video game. It is a fundamentally new language. And I would claim that if you create well-produced VR experiences, you actually create new memories, new emotional connections. But, I mean, there's scientists that back that up by now, but it is a new language. And I would say it's almost the most powerful new language that we've had in history. But as an industry, we are still in its infancy. It's early years, so we are still learning how to walk. We are still learning how to talk in this case. But that language is evolving. Pretty much every day that we work in this space, we discover new things that amaze people, and we learn on a daily basis how to better express ourselves. That being said, I mean, this language, that's the key thing to focus on. But in general, most people kind of focus on technology because, hey, there's headsets and there's cameras and there's all these things. But tech is just a tool. It's not what this is about. It's about what you do with the technology, what it enables you to do. So what does it enable you to do? What can you do with all this cool stuff? What is VR actually useful for? Well, I'll take you through a couple of examples. So one of the first things that we did, I live in Amsterdam, I have a boat, and we developed one of the first proper VR cameras. So we put the camera on the boat, we took it through the canals, and back at our office, we put people in headsets, and they would look around. A funny thing happened. In this VR experience, you would see a boat coming the other way, and while I was on the boat, I waved to them, and people would wave back. People in our office saw the boat, saw people, and instinctively would wave back, even though they're sitting in an office wearing a piece of plastic on their face. But that instinct takes over. That was interesting. What's even more interesting, 4 minutes later, after this experience was done, they would take off the headset, they would look around and go like, hey, that was really cool, but where's the fan and where's the heat blower? And we were confused because we said, well, we have none. No, you're messing with me because I felt the heat from the sun and I felt the wind in my face. Now that was something that we did not see coming. Turns out that if your experience is realistic enough, your brain becomes quite malleable and starts filling in the blanks, filling in physical sensations. That's when we started collaborating with researchers and universities to actually map out why this works in this way. So beyond that, there's a lot of opportunities that VR offers. You can travel the world, you can go to amazing islands, you can go to stand on Times Square in New York, you can stand on stage with your favorite artist if that's what you want. Some people get scared shitless by doing that, but it's not for everyone. Or you could be one of the judges in The Voice or be one of the contestants. Or think about this. What if you would not go to a sports game, but sit at home, your friend is in New York, your other friend is in London, and you're all wearing this headset, and you're looking around, you're seeing the stadium, and you see your friends, and you enjoy the game together. That goes a lot further than just a traditional TV broadcast. we're still looking for the right application for this, but it's interesting since you can have a social connection. Then, of course, we did a lot of commercial stuff. We created a virtual runway show, so you would sit in between the celebrities in New York and see all the people look at the beautiful models with the new clothing styles, which was cool, because this turned out to be one of our first big successful cases. There was a journalist in New York who saw us filming with this weird contraption, and she was like, oh, what's that? She snapped a picture, wrote a piece about it. Months later, this VR experience was in a store in London, and she went back and saw it. And she was the first person to publicly come out and say, I saw it while it was being filmed. I was at the show. I've seen it and experienced it in VR, and it was like I was really there. It was like I went back in time. Then, of course, there's the opportunities to meet celebrities. Gigi Hadid, supermodel, lots of fans, very active in social media, and suddenly you could be with her on set as her BFF on the shoot. But then you get to, I mean, this is all commercial work, which is fun, and we need to do that to pay the bills. But we balance that out with projects that have social significance. What if you're 80, 85, and you're not that mobile anymore, but you would want to see a classical concert? Suddenly, you can do that from the safety and comfort from your own home. Or let's say you have agoraphobia. You don't dare to go outside. That doesn't happen overnight. That happens over years. But suddenly you realize, I haven't been outside for the past 2 years. Traditional therapy is not super effective. But what if you wear the headset, and suddenly you're on a sunny day, sitting on a bench in a park, and it's quiet, you're safe. A month later, you put the headset on again. You're on a street, there's some kids playing. Another month later, you're in a different street, you see people on bikes, you're relaxed. Another month goes by, you're in a supermarket. 6, 7 months go by, and suddenly you're able to take a walk around the block physically. At that moment, you've given someone a bit of their freedom back. You've changed their lives. Now that's where this technology becomes so much more powerful than just sports, music, and entertainment. Or let's say you need physical therapy, but you don't have the money or the insurance to go through 30 sessions. Wear the headset, do 2 sessions in real life in the gym, but then go home, wear the headset, and suddenly you're in the gym. You see your instructor, you see the other patients, and you're going through your exercises, and the system gives feedback to your physician. Suddenly, healthcare becomes affordable and scalable. Education. Students that want to become surgeons need to have some time in the operating room. You get on a waiting list. If you're lucky, you might attend it. Now, you can be in your dorm, wear the headset, and you are at the head of the operating table. You can see exactly what's being done. You can switch views, go inside the body, look through the eyes of the surgeon. That makes learning a lot more scalable. That enables you, students, to clock more hours in the operating room. That fundamentally changes the way we think about education.
And the same way a single experience in your lifetime can be transformational, so can a well-crafted virtual reality experience.
So what is this guy from Stanford saying? If you experience something in VR that can have a lasting effect in real life. So that's what we did with this project, Beat the Street. Turns out that when school kids go to high school, their first year, they go to different schools, make new friends, and ride a different path to their schools on their bikes. Traffic accidents go up. So we created something in VR that lets you experience certain traffic situations and lets you avoid these accidents in real life.
A first-of-its-kind virtual reality game for traffic safety. Parents can download the game as an app to teach their children to cycle safely in dangerous traffic. Players have to make choices and take actions, while sensors in the VR headset instantly and playfully reveal the results of their choices. It's the realistic VR experience that really helps children to learn and remember.
Dat is heel erg echt.
And reached 4.5 million people after the news went viral in the press, while parents and schools eagerly applied for the free curriculum.
Ja, ik vind het wel een hele goede methode om op school te gaan doen, want het voelt gewoon echt heel echt.
So it's not just about creating an application that avoids traffic accidents. We're now getting to a stage where this scales up. We have reached so many people, and we have seen the results that traffic accidents go down. So now we suddenly can actually have an effect on real life. So there's another project that is close to my heart, which is called Talk to Me. So there's lots of kids that, in their teenage years, we see that here in Rotterdam, for example, where they get into trouble with the law. They don't get a social support network, and they are in the risk group of derailing. So we've created an application that helps them develop social skills.
Are we expecting anyone?
I'll go have a look. Shut up, bitch!
Fucking shit.
If I was you, I wouldn't try to run, move too fast, or yell. Definitely don't try to escape, otherwise. Not on the outside, but on the inside. Have you ever seen a man or a woman implode before? It's quite a spectacle.
So this experience, because these kids, they don't have a lot. There's no programs for them to learn to collaborate. There's no money, so suddenly this can be rolled out on simple headsets to prisons all over the world. We're testing this in Venice in a couple of months. There's another project. I'm not going to show a clip because it's kind of disturbing. This application deals with domestic violence. So care workers that get a call like, hey, something might be going on in this family, go there, but don't necessarily have the skills to spot what's really going on. These parents are very well versed in giving the right answers to get the care workers out the door. But through this experience, we train care workers to spot little signs like, hey, this kid might be in the living room drawing, but there's no drawings on the walls or on the fridge. Or his clothes might be dirty, or there might be a stack of envelopes with tax letters that are unopened. So all these little signs will help the care workers spot, hey, something might be going on. And if you go and do that virtual chat with the parents and you leave, you then go back and you see what happens to the kid once you've left. You experience what it's like from the perspective of a 7-year-old, how your mom gets beaten up by your dad, who's an alcoholic. That really triggers an emotional response. That makes the care workers, as you've seen, genuinely care a lot about the family and helps them build their motivation to make an effort and not see these families as just a number or a case, but as actual people that they can now help. So the technology in this industry is developing pretty much faster than in any industry in history. But to focus on the technology, in my opinion, is a pitfall. Because the traditional creative industry look at this and go like, oh, it's a camera. You know what? We can put that camera on someone's head, have the person walk down the street, and we get a point of view shot. That's going to be a cool VR experience. Doesn't really work. Or I've written dozens of scripts for films. I can write a script for VR. Not necessarily the case. It's not our mission in that sense to convince everyone like, oh, you need to see that this is a new language, or you need to learn to use this in a different way, or to convert people to embrace VR. It's our mission to pave the way and to lead by example, to show how you can build with this new language. A question that we often get is, well, if this is a new language, can you actually use it to tell a story? I'll take you through a couple of examples. 4 years ago, when we started doing this, we created a documentary about Ireland. And at the time, you would use a 360 camera or a VR camera, and you would capture these wide vistas, because you could look around everywhere. That's going to be cool, right? Well, it was fun at the time, but it's not really engaging. As a next step, we started exploring how we can do close-ups. How can you get someone to be close to the camera and convey an emotion? So we created a TV series, or a companion piece to a TV series, where you still had a static VR camera, but you were much more a part of that experience, of that story. Then, everyone said, well, yeah, but these are all fun. You cannot tell a proper story as cinema. Well, one of our films, Ashes to Ashes, was nominated for a Dutch Academy Award, amongst all those other big titles. And that kind of shook the industry, like, hey, what's happening here? Another technical achievement, or narrative achievement in this thing is, people would say, you cannot move a camera in VR. Now, why is that? Or why couldn't you move a camera? Let's say you're wearing a VR headset, and someone filmed a shot where the camera was in eye height and was moving forward. If you're then wearing the VR headset, your brain or your eyes are telling your brain, hey, you're moving forward. But your body's telling your brain, you're not moving forward. That conflict creates a conflict in your brain and makes you nauseous. So people said, you can't walk, you can't move in VR. This project showed that we can actually move in VR without getting everyone to be nauseous if you do it in the right way. Then there was another challenge, and this is about a year ago. There's this thing in VR where you can have in-engine VR, games. A fun thing about VR games that I like is you can wear the headset, and you can walk around, you can grab stuff, you can interact. This world is really immersive. But it's not very realistic because you see computer graphics. On the other end of the spectrum, we've got filmed VR, which is super realistic. You really believe that you're there until you try to walk, because nothing changes. You don't really walk. So that kind of, you give people, the users, the promise of immersion and realism, but you don't deliver on that promise. And everyone said, you have to do one or the other. You can't walk in a VR experience because the film is filmed from a static perspective. This project, Circus Noel, actually showed that we now can. You can film something, and if you do it in the right technological way, you can suddenly walk. This was pretty mind-blowing, but we haven't rolled this out on a big scale yet. But these things, these technologies are evolving on a daily basis. So we're bridging this gap between tech and realism and in-engine. Then, as part of this building a new language, a lot of our clients are advertising agencies like Tommy Hilfiger. Within the advertising world, everyone's in a rush. Like, oh, we need to tell a story, a commercial in 30 seconds, or 40, or 50, or 60 seconds. And that's it. Well, what we've learned is that in VR, you need a bit more time because people can look around. They need time to understand where they are and have context. So if you would need, like, let's say, 15 seconds or 20 seconds on average for a VR shot, and you only have a minute to tell your story, that gives you 3 shots. There's not much of a story there, right? I argue the opposite. I would say that in those 60 seconds, you can have over 5 minutes of narrative content. So I'm going to take you on a little journey. So let's say you put on the headset, and you hear traffic, you hear sounds, you hear lots of people walking, and you start looking around, and once you look behind you, you see this big red staircase, and you realize, hey, I'm on Times Square, New York. On this big red staircase, there's a 50-person big band with brass and horns, and they're playing music, and there's all this sound everywhere. And by the time you've understood where you are and taken all this in, that minute is almost past. You're already at 45 seconds. Now, through spatial audio, on the right side, you hear these screeching tires, and you hear a bang. You look to the right, and you just glimpse that a bike messenger and a cabbie crashed into each other. Now, the bike messenger gets up, the cabbie gets out and is shouting at him because it's always his fault. But you, as a user, didn't really know what happened. But hey, we're in VR, we are in control, so we're going to rewind to the first second and rewatch. But this second pass around, we decide to turn to the right and try and capture what we missed. As we turn around, we notice this big diner behind us. And behind the window of the diner, there's a really pretty couple. They're high fashion, in their late 20s, look amazing, power couple, but they're having an argument. The argument heats up. The lady gets up in anger, in her long dress, high heels, walks to the door, pushes it open, storms out, and steps in the street and hails a cab. As she steps in the street, the bike messenger just swerves around her and misses her. Again, you got distracted. You didn't see what happened there, so we're going to try one more time. Across from the street, we now notice for the first time that there's a guy with a big camera and a telelens taking pictures of you. You don't know why. Now, if you had focused on the cabbie and the bike messenger from the get-go, that might have led to an action-adventure story. Had you focused on the couple behind you, maybe a romantic comedy. But you could also, if you had focused on the photographer, have discovered that he is not actually taking pictures of you. He was hired by the wife of the guy sitting behind you because she suspected him of having an affair. So suddenly, you have all these different layers in these 60 seconds. That changes fundamentally the way you write, the way you think about a concept, the way you produce, the way you work with your set. It's very different from film. It changes everything. So in that sense, it is a new language, and it requires a different way of thinking. Now, I'm going to give you a little glimpse into the future of VR. And some of these technologies are already here. Some are still coming. So I spoke about sports in VR earlier. You could, of course, place a VR camera and do a live stream and be there amongst the audience in a sports stadium. But what if you're at home and you can actually choose what your point of view is? You can move through the scene. You can have all these different angles. That's where you start creating a little bit of added value. Now, okay, we can do that, but can people actually see this? Because we also need headsets. At the same time, we're seeing that brands like Oculus are delivering new headsets. Smaller packages, more user-friendly, cheaper. This is a really good headset for $250, and it allows you to experience simple VR. So it's more friendly to the user, I would say. But then there's also HTC, who are delivering the Vive Focus, which means it's also a mobile headset, but it allows you to walk around in your VR scene, something we call room scale. It allows you to use your hands and interact with the world around you. Again, something that doesn't require a big computer anymore. It doesn't require cables. It gives you a lot more interesting VR experience. Then there's also interaction, because we've been playing around with these controllers, the Oculus Touch controllers and the Vive wands, but you would want to use your hands. It's a lot more natural. And we're seeing this changing on a daily basis. Suddenly you can use all your fingers, you can grab stuff. So every time you get a little bit closer to bridging that gap between the virtual and the real. The big problem here is every step you take forward, people that do not know the tech go like, oh, I can grab something, but I don't feel anything. Now I want tactile feedback. So as a developer, you can never do it completely right, but we'll get there in the end. I hope, I think, I believe. But then there's also something called emotion, conveying emotion. You can wear a headset and have a virtual presence in the virtual world, but that's generally a cartoon character. So how do you convey what you feel and express in the virtual world? Now, what if a headset can read your face?
This is not a technology.
And
It's an
translate
invitation
that
to participate.
in real time to your character. I think that's pretty cool. Then again, there's also companies that try and use that kind of technology, and not all future possibilities are that successful or great, in my opinion. Although someone might really like to be a little creature on a bench in a virtual world. Not my preference. But in terms of your digital avatar, your digital self, we see a lot of advancements. It's going from a very abstract digital representation to something that is becoming more and more real. Now, this is an experience where you are wearing a headset and you have a virtual self in the virtual world. But then we have something called mixed reality. What if you could be in a VR space as a real person and someone else is seeing you as a real person in that VR space? Normally, when you're wearing a headset, you see the person, but you don't see their eyes. You don't see the biggest part of their expression. We're now seeing developments in technology where we can make that headset go away. We can track your eyes. We can follow your pupil. We can get you to actually engage with the other person in a VR space. But then we're making the headset transparent. We've also now seen technologies where we can actually just capture your face and reproduce that in VR space without making the headset transparent at all. And that is getting to a stage that is genuinely mind-blowing and expressive. What you're seeing here, someone's wearing a special modified headset with eye trackers. The video that you're seeing on the right of the screen is synthetic. It's not real. It's been generated in real time. I mean, look at her. Her eyes, the way they animate is, to me, pretty convincing. And being able to do that is going to change the way we manifest ourselves in virtual spaces and the way we interact with other people. Now then, there's other companies that create visions of the workplace, for example. Yeah, you could have AR, you could all be wearing these goggles and share how machines work and use that for interaction. But it's not really the future. We're already doing a lot of this. Like this virtual, a virtual way to design your store, your shopping experience. I mean, it's being presented as sci-fi, but we're doing this for brands like Tommy already. So, and that's the cool thing about this industry. A lot of the things that we can do right now, people still consider sci-fi. So, I mean, that makes me pretty happy if we can create all these cool things. And then there's a lot of this happening. There's arcades popping up over the world where you can have lots of people in a big empty space wearing VR headsets and play games together. So from a technology standpoint, this is really cool. As a gamer, I mean, I enjoy playing games with my friends, but the content here is still very limited. I mean, you're wearing a plastic gun and headset and you're blowing stuff up. I mean, why not use this to go back in time and meet Leonardo da Vinci and have a conversation with him, or stand in Rembrandt's workshop. We've actually already done that, but you have to download our app for that. So there's lots of things that are possible. I'm going to show you something that is possible right now, which I think is really cool.
I try to tell you, you ain't ready. Have you ever seen a man not afraid to die? Gave his life for a dream. Born hustler, so the game can see. A caged beast, but now I'm free. How can you blame me? I was born for this, the game chose me. Now I've been training for this my whole life. Carpe diem, seize the moment, right. We gon' turn up and rock plenty ice. This is our time, yeah, about that life. I'm a street dude, teach dudes to think quicker. Would take over the world, but yo, I dream bigger. Never satisfied, I'm trying to be richer. And pour out a little bit for those who ain't with us. Ready, I don't get ready, I stay ready. Cause the consequences is heavy. My man D said it, we'll never quit. Even though the thing is like a 7 Chevy, boy, ready. My whole clique since 06. Now we doing this, grind hard, when the load gets heavy. The money was slow, but now it's steady. You boys is not ready.
So I beta tested this in the Void before they went live. I could not stop talking about this for weeks at the office. I drove people crazy. Because you're not just walking around a big gym anymore. You're wearing a headset, you're walking through these rooms in an old haunted mansion, but you can grab onto the doors, you can open them, you can walk upstairs, you can open cabinets, find a ghost, and capture them. And this really is a glimpse into what VR is going to make possible in the very near future. So the possibilities of this technology are pretty much endless. You can have interactive stories, you can have multi-user experiences, you can stream content from all over the world in real time, you can do mixed reality as you just saw. If you can imagine it, we can make it. Or as an industry, we can definitely make your visions come to real life. And that is the key thing here. This industry needs innovative thinkers. This industry needs dreamers. This industry needs people that will not take no for an answer. Because without good content, it doesn't go anywhere. Without good applications, this doesn't mean anything. So I would say that we as a company, but also I would hope we as an industry, strive to improve quality of life. Because the future is not in hardware, or in music, or in entertainment, or in sports, or in all that. It's much broader than that. We have the opportunity to really improve quality of life. And because we have that opportunity, that also gives us a responsibility to take that on. You know, Spider-Man's quote, with lots of power comes lots of responsibility. So as a company, we balance commercial work that we do with projects that are truly socially relevant, that are meaningful. And for us, this is a first step on a much, much bigger journey. So I would say, from what I see, how people respond to the things we create, is that we are really changing the world. We now have the chance to do something so profound that we can really, truly shape the future. And that opportunity comes once in a lifetime. So most of us here, I would say, speak a technical language. We've been speaking that for the past 2 days. But if we have this opportunity to improve quality of life, then we also need to teach ourselves, to learn how to express ourselves in this new language. And to me, I think that's an incredibly exciting journey to be on. And I hope I have inspired you to join us. Thank you. So if I'm right, we now have a little bit of time for some questions and answers. I would love to engage with you guys and hear your thoughts, your dreams, your crazy ideas. Because if they're crazy, oh, I see a question all the way in the back. We're going to give him some time to get all the way over there. In the meantime, you other guys can think about your questions, unless you already know everything. But if you're afraid to ask questions in this setting, come up to me after my talk, and I'll be happy to engage. Yes?
Is there already for what is it? Like we had some wars in the video with different standards like Video 2000 and Z2000, etc. Is there already an agreed standard for virtual reality content?
That's a good question. If I can rephrase that, back in the days when we had Betamax, Video 2000, VHS, there was a standards war going on. Is that standards war happening in VR, or have we already gotten past that? We're dealing with the same issue. There's lots of different headsets that deal with different development cycles and different types of content. But as the user base, which is relatively small, I would say 20, 30 million users right now, have been pushing back to Oculus. Oculus, one of the main brands, would say, oh, our content is for our platform. It's exclusive. The user would not take that. They would hack into the software and create options to experience that same software on another headset, on the Vive, for example. After the community started doing this, Oculus opened up and said, OK, let's open it up. Let's support cross-platform experiences. So there's experiences, for example, Star Trek Bridge Crew. You can be part of the crew on Star Trek. And you can play that with an Oculus headset, with a Vive headset, with a PlayStation headset, or just with a PC with a 2D screen. And all of these people can join in the same experience. So we're not fully there yet in terms of unified standards. But I think the industry, in this short amount of time, has been making really good progress. So a good question. Thank you for that. Next one.
Hey, it was really, really nice, but my question is, if you are a regular front-end developer doing Node or any other stuff, and you want to step in and work on something on a VR, do you have any path or any suggestion for how to make that
easy
transition?
Yes, yes, yes. If you're a front-end developer and you're doing web, it's now becoming very easy to jump into the whole magic of VR. There's something called WebVR. Companies like Mozilla are supporting that, and through a lot of traditional technologies, as a web front-end developer, if you can create on-screen experiences where you can integrate 360 content or content made in Unity in your browser, but also vice versa. You can create something that will run in your browser, but will simultaneously connect to any headset that is connected to that computer. So you can, without knowing anything about Oculus or Vive or another headset, still use your front-end content for display in that headset. Now, the first things you're going to be making are not going to be fully 360 and fully immersive, but I would say if you dive into WebVR and you're a capable front-end developer, within 10 days or so, you'll have pretty decent content up and running. So yes, please, dive in. I saw another question there, I think. Someone was raising a hand? Nope. Oh, right here.
Let me see if I get this right. What are you afraid? Or what are you doing in of the bubble effect, in order, like? Sorry.
Take your time.
Take for example Instagram.
Yes.
You see there all the people wearing new clothes on their new cars, and so on. With the VR, you'll create an alternative reality. Your example said that people will want to go out more because they will see the outside. I say that's not the case. I say that will be the opposite.
OK, so if I can rephrase that, what you're saying is that with the advancement of VR, people will spend more time in headsets instead of actually socially engaging?
Exactly,
right.
And let me get the idea a step forward.
Yes?
You didn't want to show us the video that was too disturbing. It's like playing with the reality.
Mm-hmm.
If you.
So, OK, let me tackle the first part of your question. By having really immersive virtual environments, will people stay inside and not socially engage? Let me put it this way. If you're a teacher and you've got a group of school kids in the Bronx, and you would want to, I mean, there's no forest, there's no green spaces there, and if you would organize a field trip to say, hey, we're going to go to a national park, a lot of these kids would call in sick because they're not very motivated. If you're in that classroom and you give them a headset and they can briefly, for 5 or 10 minutes, experience the magic of a national park, what you will see, and what we've already have seen, is that suddenly these kids will be a lot more motivated to go on that field trip and experience it for real, to smell the grass, play with the trees, build a hut. So depending on the type of content and the type of application you create, I think you can motivate people to venture outside or to go outside their comfort zone, like the agoraphobia example. Then again, as with pretty much anything, as with gaming, films, drugs, alcohol, if people are prone to addiction, that will happen here as well. It's our responsibility as content makers, as developers, to have moral and ethical guidelines on the type of content you make. But there is a limit to what we can control. If someone is prone to addiction and really dives in, we can't really stop them. But I would hope, by creating really good experiences, we would motivate them to seek out each other and seek out more interesting outside experiences. I hope that sort of answers your question. Yes?
Hi. My question is that I haven't personally seen any initiatives to fix your face boiling after an hour of gameplay in the summer. So do you think there's no, that people do not want to play for longer periods of time? Or?
So the question here is, what are the advances on using VR for a prolonged period of time? Because yes, these headsets get hot, and they get sticky and sweaty. And imagine being the second person in line after 10 people have been using that headset. Yeah. So we are seeing advancements in aftermarket little pieces of foam and rubber that are hypoallergenic, that will save your skin. There's options where you can have little fans and that will blow wind inside the headset. All of them are in very early stages. It hasn't been solved properly yet. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities there. So if you have ideas, I would say, hey, jump in.
I have another one
sure.
About, like, wait, I'm too nervous.
That's okay. You can ask me afterwards. How are we on time? Can we still do one more? Okay. So, yes. There's a question here, or...
Hi, so during the whole conference, we saw that what Blender can do, what machine learning can do, and also now VR. So what's the plan? Where do you see the future of it? Do you see that we can join those technologies and at the end create our own heaven in the VR? Or?
I wouldn't know about creating heaven, because everyone's definition of heaven is, I would think, very different. But merging these technologies is definitely happening on a pretty large scale. For example, when you look at machine learning or machine vision, the headsets I was showing from Vive, the Vive Focus, that doesn't use any cables, that actually has cameras that look around, that perceive the world around you. So in the VR space, if I'm walking around, the headset will track and recognize this as a stand and warn me before I run into it, or it will recognize walls. There's already technology that can recognize people. If you're wearing a Vive headset, and someone is walking up to you and wants to talk to you, but you're not hearing them because you're wearing the headphones, and you're not seeing them because you're wearing the goggles, the camera in the Vive will recognize you as a person, and you can set it to break into your VR experience. And suddenly, there's a hologram of that person projected in your VR experience. So that requires, of course, more advanced algorithms in terms of machine vision. In terms of AI, what we're now seeing, and some of our work has already shown that, if you would capture a real human with volumetrics, so you can actually, in VR, walk around that person, that's already one step. That requires proper machine vision. The second step is, you can capture an actor's performance, but down the line, you would want that human to respond to you, to respond to your questions. You want that to be AI-driven. You also want the mesh, the 3D mesh, to be driven in real time and have speech recognition, or speech sync in that sense. So those technologies are already being explored to make this happen. Early stages, but yeah, I would say all of these things come together in VR. But if you are in machine learning or machine vision or in AI, there's tons of opportunities, because it's pretty much uncharted territory by now. So thank you. More questions? Or do we do, because I think, from looking at the time, it's 6, so I'm already 10 minutes over time. Oh, there's one more question there. Oh, this is exciting. What are we going to get?
Sorry, I remembered. It was about the sunlight hitting the lens.
Right.
I got really nervous about leaving it out here. So this is something that I think a consumer product should have. Also the static issues. I heard people are getting zapped in their ears where they...
Two good questions. So what she's saying is, if you have a VR headset, pretty much any kind of headset, it has pretty advanced, complicated lenses. If you would put your headset upside down on your desk, which a lot of people do, there's sunlight hitting the headset, your headset will fry. It'll literally burn up. For developers, sure, you're aware of that, you'll avoid that. But for a regular consumer, you don't really think about that. So the question is if the industry is solving that. Honestly, no. There's no solution for that yet, even though I think there's some easy mechanical options to fix that. The other question that she was asking is static electricity. Some people get a static shock when they wear a VR headset. There are some headsets that are trying to accommodate for that with little conductors inside the headset. I think in 2 or 3 generations, we might see more of that. Right now, you don't see that. You still have to solve that on your own. And it varies from person to person. There's not it's a small group of people that are very sensitive to static electricity. We have one developer that gets zapped continuously. So we basically keep him tethered to a ground the whole day at his desk, which means he stays at his desk, which is good for me as an employer because he becomes really productive. All right, I'm going to wrap up, guys. Thank you so much for your questions. If you have more, come talk to me afterwards.